What's up, Wargamers? This is Budget Wargamer back with another edition, and today we are talking about Star Wars Legion from Fantasy Flight Games. It's a game that'll be out here in the next couple of weeks, and I'm very excited about it because, of course, it's Star Wars, right? Represent. Actually, this is not me repping. I wear Star Wars shirts like almost every day. That's just who I am, and I don't even really think about it, but I bet a lot of you guys are the same way. So, Fantasy Flight's got this really cool game. It's a miniatures game, finally, with Star Wars. It's got plastic miniatures, and the plastic seemed a little bit different to me. It was like not quite the War Machine resin plastic, but it wasn't quite the Games Workshop hard ABS plastic like we're used to on these sprues. They came bagged up, and it was a little bit of a strange feel, but it reminded me of Rune Wars, which shouldn't surprise you if you picked up the fantasy miniatures game for Fantasy Flight Games called Rune Wars. Then you know what the plastic quality is roughly like. The bases were strange. It seemed like they needed to be a little bit more angled on the bevel, maybe even be a little bit larger, but it's clear that they weren't trying to directly copy Games Workshop on the base design because it'd be too easy for people to make that comparison. But it wasn't exactly the basing tray style that you saw with Rune Wars either. So it's different. It's its own unique game. The scale was nice. The Stormtroopers are smaller than Space Marine, but they're more in line with an Imperial Guardsman, which they should be. And so let's dive into the Fantasy Flight homepage here, or the product page that they've got set up. And this is right here on fantasyflightgames.com. You just go up to their products. Let's take you to it in case you want to check this out for yourself. There's obviously other videos out there on YouTube, but you got to come into the Star Wars section because Fantasy Flight has the license on so many different great game systems. They've got X-Wing, they've got Star Wars Destiny, the card game. My cat's jumped up here, moving my Mac around, trying to be a boss on the hobby desk here, even trying to lean on my mouse. So fighting him down here. So here we are. Star Wars Legion, it's $90 in the US if you're picking it up in the US. So you're going to get two opposing forces. You're going to get the Imperial forces and the Rebel forces, and this is set during the main episode 4 through 7 saga. You could even say it's episode 7 because we didn't really see the introduction of the speeder bikes that are included in here on the Imperial side until Return of the Jedi. So that was something, when you look at what the contents are for this box, you're going to notice that the speeder bikes that were there were part of that. Now, the Rebel Walkers, these ATRTs, whatever they're calling them, I don't remember those being in any of the main episode 4, 5, or 6 movies, but they certainly may have been. And I just realized I may have been calling Return of the Jedi episode 7. Not sure if I was, didn't mean to be doing that. But there's those speeder bikes from the land speeders there on the left-hand side. And this is like an Endor setting where you have Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker. Those are your two main characters included in the army, in the starter box. And just like most Fantasy Flight games, this is a little bit of a gripe of mine, but it just depends on if it's done properly or not. And I don't like games where you have to do all the bookkeeping and accounting and you need trays and organizers and card sleeves and stuff like that. I do like Shadespire from the standpoint of there's not really a lot to get into. Yes, it comes with tokens, and then yes, it comes with cards, but oftentimes some of the Fantasy Flight games and some of the other board games that are out there really get overboard. The one that was super excessive that came to mind that I thought was going to be more miniatures based was Mansions of Madness. And that was actually so off-putting that I did paint up some of the models, but ended up selling that off at a gamer garage sale. And I've heard so many good things about the game. I've played the spin-offs of the Eldritch Horror phone apps, and I thought that the game mechanics were all right. But I just couldn't get into Mansions of Madness. And also X-Wing, too, for that matter. I feel like every time I'm going to get ready to play a game, I have to go through like a tackle box of things and get all these tokens and chits out, get all my reference cards and all that stuff. It's just way too much, especially when there's like 5 different ways you can play one particular model, depending on which cardboard slot you put on your X-Wing or your TIE Fighter and whatnot. Great game mechanics again, but just for me, it's something that is off-putting. So unlike some of Fantasy Flight's other games like X-Wing, which comes pre-painted, these games come unassembled, so you're going to have to glue them together, and they also come unpainted, unprimed. So you're going to have to do all the hobbying, which is great because this is a hobby game designed for war gamers that is meant to be in the Star Wars setting, and it's going to be very interesting to find out how well this is going to take to the wargaming masses. Is Star Wars enough of a license and enough of an IP to get dedicated wargamers to take it seriously? Not necessarily saying that they're going to sideline their War Machine, sideline their Warhammer 40,000, but can it do more than what things like Bolt Action have done? Bolt Action and Gates of Antares are fantastic games by Rick Priestley and some of the other game contributors at Warlord Games. Fantasy Flight, on the other hand, is hoping to pull an ace out of the deck here with this Star Wars Legions. I mean, ever since I was a teenager getting into Warhammer and then Warhammer 40,000, I've always kind of wanted there to be a Star Wars game. And I know that at one point there was a pewter-based models Star Wars game, or at least pewter-based 35, 32 millimeter models. These are like 28 millimeter, not 28 millimeter heroic, it didn't seem like. So there's a shot in on the Stormtroopers. I wouldn't even be upset if these came painted up like that already. That'd be fantastic, because I think this type of paint job is great that they did on those Stormtroopers. But you're going to get quite a few in the box, and we can drill into the contents. But one other thing I wanted to note, and this is just my observation, I don't have an actual hearsay on it, but I've watched how the rules have played out, some of the demo games. I think I've checked it out on Beasts of War and Spiky Bits. And so looking back a few years ago, there was a game called Dust, and then Dust Warfare, Dust 47. And it was originally going to start off at, I think it was AEG was going to pick up Dust, but then Fantasy Flight bought it real quick, and its initial release was officially under Fantasy Flight Games. Then they came out, and that was a board game on tiles, where you played on square tiles and stuff. Fantastic game, and I'm actually friends with Paolo Parente, the artist who started that game, and I fully support it. I'm back in my hobby case on the bottom shelf. I've got a lot of those models. I've got a lot in the garage as well. These hobby cases are jam full of assembled models, partially painted, and I did get some Caradron Overlords put together last night on the Necromunda bases. I thought it'd be a little bit cooler to do those. I might even 40k, build them as a proxy 40k army like I've done with my Adeptus Mechanicus Skaven that I've got. But what I was getting to here with the background story on Dust was Fantasy Flight owns that game license, and they had Andy Chambers write the game mechanics for it. So the original rulebook for Dust Warfare that was owned by Fantasy Flight was written by Andy Chambers. And when I see a lot of the rules being played out here in Star Wars Legions, I see an awful lot of similarities in a good way to what Dust Warfare had going for it. And for a number of years, about 2 years, Dust Warfare was my main go-to hobby game. I sat out Warhammer 40,000 6th edition, and I sat out most of 7th edition, because Dust was it for me. I liked the pseudo-fantasy World War II aspect of it. I got into Bolt Action. I played some games of that. I got into Gates of Antares. I got into a whole number of, even Black Powder. I got into all of the other non-Games Workshop hobby things because I just digged it. Space Marines grow old after a while, but then inevitably Games Workshop started kicking up the hobby notch, bringing in new armies, bringing out better model kits. They're bringing out at least a new model kit every week, it seems like, which is ridiculous. You used to have to wait months for a new release, if that. So Star Wars Legion seems to have a lot of similarities to Dust Warfare in the game mechanics itself, but it also pulls in a lot of other game mechanics that I see being common across some of the other Star Wars properties. So, such as these dice that are being used, which are somewhat reminiscent of the X-Wing dice. But then again, you have to think back. Dust Warfare had a unique Dust Warfare had a unique dice mechanic system too, which included hit symbols and blanks. So this is somewhat like that, but it's going to be on 8-sided dice, whatever you call those guys, octagonal dice. That might not even be the right word, because it's 8-sided. But let's go down and take a look at what's included in here, and then there are also, because there's quite a bit. I mean, there was like 2 squads of stormtroopers, 2 squads of rebel troopers. I think it was 2 speeder bikes, 1 walker from the rebels. Luke and Darth Vader is what I saw, because my local hobby store had received a demo copy of which they were diligently putting together right after they got back from GAMA in Reno last week. And he was so excited to walk across and show me what the models were like. And I'm stoked. I haven't put down my pre-order for it yet because I know I'll just pick it up there in the store. But the the prospect of these models being as good in person as they looked here. You're not dealing with this like funny bent plastic from really soft plastics. It's gonna be good, and it's gonna be nice to see some of the people from like the card game side of the store that don't really play miniatures games probably get drawn into it as well because of the Star Wars aspect of it. So it's a customizable army game. There's not a lot of options to get into right now. If you take a look, yeah, they're going to sell a colored dice pack. They're going to sell range rules. That's $30. You're going to get that in this $90 starter box. There'd be almost no reason to pick that up separately. And now you've got the Imperial expansion. Now, not all of these are included in the starter box. So these three here that aren't available yet, are the AT-ST unit expansion at a whopping $50. You would think for that price that it would include two of them, but it's looking like it's only going to include a single one, which means that it's not priced like an Imperial Guard Sentinel at $30, that it's actually priced quite higher, more like a Lehman Russ. So I have heard that it is a very cool model, but that's just hearsay, but I don't really have reason to doubt it will be, or doubt that it will be. General Veers, he does not include the AT-AT, which you wish he did, of course, because that is how he rode into battle on Hoth. But you do get snow troopers coming out, as well as stormtroopers, and more of the 74Z speeder bike unit expansions. You can quickly see where buying this $90 starter box for all the contents that are available in it is really going to be more advantageous for those people that are really serious about the game. Because you're just going to get value over and over again when it comes to that. So the contents that come in here are just going to be worth way more than what their individual parts are going to be, because you're going to get 2 units of Rebel Troopers, you're going to get an AT-RT, you're going to get Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, who apparently seem to only be available in this starter box at this point. So you can pick up the optional T-47 Airspeeder, Leia Organa, and then Fleet Troopers, which of course would be the style that were on the Corellian Corvette during A New Hope, when the Imperial Star Destroyer Darth Vader was tracking down the Corellian Corvette with Leia Organa and C-3PO/R2-D2 on board. There's also some terrain, and the terrain does also come in the starter box, so at least the 8 barricades do. I'm not 100% sure if the Priority Supplies Battlefield expansion does. I don't think that was included when I took a look at the box sets. And then you're going to get a bunch of tokens, cards, and of course the dice. So this is just something that should be on your gaming radar if it's not already. If you've got your like tunnel vision on with the Games Workshop mindset, definitely look into checking out Star Wars Legion. Put it on your Easter list, put it on your Christmas list, whatever you got to do to get this game out there. But it's been good talking to you guys here. We're going to do some more FaceTime on these videos to try to help you guys learn a little bit more about me. We're going to do some more show and tell like I did yesterday with some more games and more models here on the hobby table in my hobby bunker here in my house. So talk to you guys later. This is Budget Wargamer. Rock on.